Hello, everybody. This is Jeff here with Startup Junto. I have with me today Dr. Jason Phillips. I know Dr. Jason Phillips. He was a professor for me here at Westchester University. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jason Phillips. I've been at Westchester University for 20 years now, and I started a study abroad company about 25 years ago. So, I don't know.
So could you tell me about the study abroad company, what you do today with that?
Today we're running about 8 tours per year. We run one to Italy and one to Ireland over the winter break, and then during the summer we run Australia. And our Fiji and Australia tours have become really popular, so we're actually running 3 this year for the first time.
Nice.
And then Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand, which is also very popular, and Australia, and New Zealand.
Okay, cool. So how did you, come to start your study abroad program?
Well, early on in 1993, I was at Penn State, and I ran my first trip for them. Mm-hmm. It was actually to Akron, Ohio, which isn't a very exciting location, but it was I was teaching a lighter than air technology course, so blimps.
Okay.
And so we went out to the Goodyear blimp, and the students got to go on the blimp and walk around on it. And that was the very first trip.
Uh-huh.
And then it was intermittent for quite a few years. And then I was hired to do a trip for St. Bonaventure University up in New York. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like they weren't giving the students their money's worth, mm-hmm. and that I could do it better. So I started really doing it full-fledged at that point.
Did you have experience before this with planning trips or organizing groups together?
Not really. I'm a logistics degree, so my degree is in management science, operations, and logistics. So mm-hmm. from that point of view, I kind of like doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I like doing it because it's kind of a big puzzle.
Uh-huh.
So you have all the different components, and then you put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And we do the airfare as well. So, for example, the Vietnam trip, we noticed that we were probably having some problems with people signing up, mm-hmm. because if they type in the airfares, they get scared.
Yeah.
So there's 13 flights. I get it down to about 2,200 for all the flights, including from the U.S. But if you plug it into Expedia, it's over 7,000.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the hacker airfares that are really impacting students,
uh-huh.
and helping me get that low price for them.
Yeah. So, when you started this company, did you do any planning for it, or did you just jump in and, kind of bootstrap it? And
well, I mean, that's a little bit of a darker story in a way, because I was running trips for Westchester,
uh-huh.
And they didn't treat me fairly,
mm-hmm.
and the current president was the dean at the time.
Yeah.
And so they kind of had a heavy hand with me. They said, well, you can keep running trips, but it's going to be 100% our way.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat back and I thought about it from an entrepreneurial point of view, like
mm-hmm.
what were they giving me?
Yeah.
And they were providing me with liability insurance, and that was it. No support whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I spun it off into its own company completely, mm-hmm. at that point.
Yeah. Did you seek out guidance from anybody or mentorship when you started
No, it's
this?
all in-house, all self-taught.
Uh-huh. Did you have any resources that you really turned to when you were, teaching yourself?
Well, I think it's kind of old school. Lots of reading.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a ton of reading and getting up to speed on different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it just always kind of made sense to me, actually planning things out. So
yeah.
And I like the logistical aspects where you figure out to get everybody from point A to point B, how many people you have. If you have a large group, like we ran a trip for a school in Norway, mm-hmm. and we had 76 Norwegians in Dublin.
Yeah.
Moving them from point to point is a lot different than moving 5 people.
Yeah.
So with that one, we had everybody meet up at each point, and we gave them maps ahead of time, and then that was part of the treasure kind of map kind of thing to find us.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked out well.
Yeah.
But we specialize actually in trips of 15 people or less. That's what we really like to do. Mm-hmm. It's the probably the least profitable segment of the market, but it's the most impactful. Uh-huh. So it's really good for students to have a small group like that.
Yeah. So you do this, you didn't choose to do this as, something to, make millions off of. It's
a labor of love. I mean, we run it as a true nonprofit. So mm-hmm. We don't have any surprises for the students. Some study tour companies will lowball to mm-hmm. get people to sign up.
Yeah.
And then once they sign up, they're hooked, and they have to, there's just one more charge. And
yeah.
We don't do that.
Yeah, and after you've already paid $1,500 and they need another $600, it's like, well, I've already invested this much money, and you don't have a choice. So.
Right. And that's absolutely true, and that is what happens with a lot of different tour companies, and I don't think that's really right.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing we do is there's no surprises with students. So 2 years ago, the Ireland trip flight was canceled by American Airlines,
Mm-hmm.
and we still covered the extra night in the hotels, and
Oh, great.
and then also, since we do it for students across the U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
we also covered the connecting flights then for them on the next day.
Yeah. So does your nonprofit plan for that? Do you have kind of like a surplus that that just kind of gives you backup into?
There's a little bit
like
of
that?
surplus
Yeah.
built in, but it's not a huge amount.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, for 10 students to cover them an extra night in the hotel and then cover the extra airfares, because they were all flying back to Philly,
Yeah.
and then they had to go all across the U.S., and that used up that surplus for that year.
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge that you faced when you first started out?
The biggest challenge is still the biggest challenge is that the way the market is set up, study abroad offices, the other big companies, they give free stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll give the study abroad offices free trips. They'll give them direct cash payments to their departments or their offices,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't do that because the students have to pay that in the end anyway.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
that's not coming from anywhere.
No.
Nowhere.
So we're less than half the price of comparable tours,
Uh-huh.
and that's really what we want to do. We're focused completely on the students,
Mm-hmm.
and we get some resistance from study abroad offices because we don't give them that extra money.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of things they could argue, like, well, we don't really get to use that money, but they really do. They get nicer offices, nicer furniture, nicer paintings, and
Yeah.
they don't own it, but if you get to use it anyway, it's
They're
kind
still
of the same
benefiting
thing. Yeah,
from it.
yeah.
So, with the company today, how big is the program that you have? Do you have employees that work for you, or?
Well, my wife's a faculty member at St. Joe's,
Mm-hmm.
and that's actually one of the big problems for us is that finding academic faculty members that can run trips
Yeah.
effectively. You need a different knowledge, not a different knowledge set, but a different, set of skills. You have to really like students
Yeah.
because you spend so much time with them, and then you have to be willing to actually kind of rough it. So we had a faculty member at another school that looked kind of promising for a little bit, but then it turned out he would only fly first class,
Oh.
and that knocked him out of the running.
That
So
could
right now
double
it's
your
the two of
ticket
us
price.
are the primary employees,
Uh-huh.
and then we have we started an internship program,
Oh,
and we
excellent.
have like 10 interns now,
Nice.
and they're not doing a lot, but they're trying different things.
Yeah. Gives them experience, and
Mm-hmm.
internships are, invaluable to get experience, to make connections.
Mm-hmm.
You never know who you're going to meet, when you're working an internship, and
Mm-hmm.
you learn the inner workings of a business, and that's something you can't learn in the classroom. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, to a degree you can, but until you're out there in the real world and see what actually happens when actions are made, that's the best way to learn that. So.
Mm-hmm. And they are compensated too. And the
Mm-hmm.
other big benefit they get is that sometimes you have, say it's a 4-share room. If we have an empty bed, then we can give them a super discount on a trip
Oh, cool.
because we have to pay for that bed anyway. So they can get a nice discount and still get the experience for a trip as well.
So, today, do you have future plans for the company, or do you just kind of take it, a year at a time? Like, do you, in 10 years, do you see yourself, growing to this bigger organization, or, what's your vision?
I have a lot of people that don't have PhDs, so they're not academic faculty members
Mm-hmm.
that could run trips. And I'm kind of grooming some of the people who went on our trips early on are now old enough that they could actually take a trip. And a lot of them, because of the way vacation structures work in the U.S., they could run one trip a year.
Yeah.
I have a number of people that might be willing to do that for us down the road. Our goal right now is to start adding some extra tours. We've been very fortunate. We have so many repeat customers, so to speak. Like about 30 to 40% of our tours are repeats,
Yeah.
and people go on 4 or 5 tours, and that's both good and bad. It's great because they're coming back, but then it's less spots to get the next generation of people that want to repeat tours.
Yeah.
So that's been a little bit more of a challenge for us as well. So we're hoping our goal isn't necessarily to get huge. It's all about the quality that we provide to the students. We want them to come back. We undersell our tours. A lot of other tours also oversell their tours. So, for example, some of the Australia tours, they'll say, like, you're going to visit the Lilliputian city oh, that sounds really great, right? But really what it is, it's in Kings Canyon. It's a little pile of rocks that people put together, little stacks of rocks that look like a little city.
Oh yeah.
And that's but they
That's
put it in
it.
all their brochures, and it's all such a great thing.
Yeah. And then you get there and you're like, this is it.
That's it, yeah. But they count on students not remembering what was marketed.
Yeah.
So our satisfaction quotient, when people come back from our trips, they're happy. And actually 2 to 3 months, they're even happier. 6 months, they're even happier. So it increases a lot. And what we believe happens is they talk to their friends and they say, oh, hey, I went to Vietnam and I did this, 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 and this. And the student or whoever their friends are talking to, they say, well, I was there, but I never got to do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And so that builds the view of the trip in the mind of the student.
Yeah. Yeah, the referrals definitely holds a lot of weight.
Well, no, I'm not saying referrals. What I'm saying is that the
experience that they're
no,
sharing.
they're doing a direct comparison to their peers.
Oh, okay.
And they're saying the peer is saying what their experience was on study abroad, and then our guys are saying what their experience, and it's so much higher than the normal experience because, like, okay, if you went to Australia and you saw the Lilliput City, it's really a big deal. But our guys do a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
So when they talk to the other group, it's really a fundamental difference.
Yeah.
And we keep the prices extremely low. So our Australia trip is plus or minus 4,000 plus airfare for a 22-day trip.
Now, speaking of, the logistics of trips, do you use any special tools for when you book your flights? Like, do you use online tools or do you
No,
go
there is no
direct to
online
carrier?
tools that can do what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do your research like with all the individual carriers?
No,
and...
it's a big puzzle, and there's no computer that can do it. So it's just a matter of looking at origin destination pairs and then using a lot of different kinds of technology to come up with the ideas, but using them in ways that probably they weren't intended. That's why they're called hacker fairs.
Yeah.
Because it's just a matter of putting together something that will work for the students.
Yeah. I guess all those tools like Expedia, they need to make some money too, and they're not just making.
It's not just that. It's just that maybe let's say for the Vietnam trip, if you go Bangkok, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Siem Reap, and then Laos, that might be say $2,000. If you go a different direction, it might be $4,000 or $5,000.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to play around with your directions and also your origin destination pairs to come up with the best idea.
Okay.
And the cheapest rate.
Yeah.
And then you build everything in after that. So the first step is to figure out the flights. Second step is to figure out the hotels, and then you figure out the individual activities.
So kind of like the old-fashioned way, but it's actually today it's one of the best ways still to do it. To just kind of do it yourself. So I've never. Every time I've ever had a trip planned, there's been very few trips where I had time to plan things out, and I've always either just gone through an Expedia or a travel agent, and I always went with what was the best deal, but I never had the time to actually sit down and try to put it together myself and see what I could come up with. But that's definitely something I will consider.
Yeah. Well, for each tour,
trip.
it takes about 8 hours to put together the flights.
Oh yeah.
Even if it's a small tour with only say 4 or 5 flights.
So what kind of marketing do you do for the company?
We have a website that's been around quite a bit, and people can use it to actually apply for the trips. And then we have a successful Facebook page. We have an Instagram account now that we just started this year.
Oh yeah.
And we have a Twitter presence, but nothing's really being done with it. And that's our primary advertising. And then we also go around different schools. We'll set up tables, information tables, and talk to people one-on-one at those tables. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I did just buy 2 promotional vehicles for the business, that a 1954 Land Rover and a 1971 Land Rover that are the 54 is painted up and ready to go. The 71 I still have to get painted, but it has our logos and stuff on it.
Those feel like iconic travel vehicles.
Right, it's the one with the wheels on the hood,
Uh-huh.
the classic safari vehicle. That's why we went with those.
Yeah.
And so the plan is to start using those in our promotions as well. And then also for like trade shows or adventure travel shows, they're small enough you can pull them in and actually park them in the booth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 54 Land Rover is only like 2,700 pounds, so it's super light. And so it's small, so it can fit in everywhere. Smaller than what a Jeep Wrangler would be.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I guess. So are these at I guess they wouldn't be considered like trade shows, but is there like study abroad program like conferences or?
There are, but that would not be necessarily where we would go. We would
Mm-hmm.
do more like student activity fairs.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at maybe doing some of the concerts,
Yeah.
kind of setting up that way to attract the right age group, the right target market.
Mm-hmm. So.
And the cars get their attention because
Yeah.
you look at them and it's like, oh, what's that? And then you walk over and see.
Yeah. Now, with the study abroad programs, do you find that do students ever give you feedback? Like, do you look to them for, advice on where they'd like to go? How do you determine, the travel destinations? Do you look at online trends or?
Well, fortunately, I think we have a pretty good feel for where people want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they have to be, quote, sexy destinations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more difficult to run ones that aren't necessarily like Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. We have a tour on the books,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't really like, oh wow, I want to go there.
Yeah.
But like the Fiji Australia one, which is their super popular tour, people
Yeah.
hear Fiji and they really want to go.
Uh-huh.
That's an exciting thing for them to go and do.
Yeah. How do you solicit feedback from the people on your tours? Do you ever ask them for like reviews on your website or testimonials about the trips that they took?
They do that on their own, and we've been very blessed by the people that go on our tours. They
Mm-hmm.
really want to help.
Yeah.
And so they come to us
Mm-hmm.
to help, and they want to do things and talk to people. Like just recently, somebody who signed up for this year, they were flying back from somewhere and sitting next to one of our former students,
Oh yeah.
and that's how they signed up for the trip.
Oh,
So
nice.
they're very, very loyal, very great things. We run it. We've heard students talk about our tours as somewhere between a study tour and a family vacation,
Mm-hmm.
and it is kind of like that.
Yeah.
So we know everybody. We're in contact with everybody who's ever gone with us,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of unheard of. And then we're still, we know when they're having kids and when they're getting married. And we just flew out to one of the people went on an Australia trip. They got married. He got a destination wedding in Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
so we went out to his wedding, my wife and I. So
Oh,
we
very
really
cool.
keep that connection going.
Yeah. Yeah. That relationship can be invaluable to building that long lasting. The personal relationship can keep the business relationship going.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know if business relationship is the right word to use because you run a nonprofit and
Well, it is kind of a business relationship because we're blessed because they like us, but we also like that they recommend us to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And after I've been an academic long enough that I am getting kids of people that I taught when I started my career.
Oh yeah.
So it is possible that we'll get to that point where we'll
Uh-huh.
have the kids of the people. And we have a number of parents that their kids are in high school and they're telling us like, oh, I hope you're still in business in 5 years because I want to send my junior high kid with you on a trip.
Mm-hmm.
So that works for us too.
Yeah.
And sometimes the parents that are the most protective of their kids become some of our greatest fans
Mm-hmm.
and are really positive for us because we do look out at the kids. Once again, when it's a small tour, you can actually do that.
Yeah.
So it's not a family vacation, but we know everybody, we take care of them, we keep an eye on them. And there are safety issues overseas. And a
Mhm.
lot of schools, they'll just send faculty with no training.
Mm-hmm.
And good luck to you.
How
a
have you learned your do you learn all of what you know from like the locals? Do you read this is the best practices for visiting Laos or
Well, both.
yeah.
Both. I mean, my friends in, say, Southeast Asia, they've been my friends now for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved from being a foreigner, which is what they would call somebody first there,
Mm-hmm.
to being a friend or family member. And so that makes a big difference for the students.
Yeah.
In Vietnam, our students actually get invited to people's houses, which is kind of unheard of,
Yeah.
as opposed to just being on the surface, which is what, if you just run a tour once, that's what you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my wife is really intertwined. She always takes care of all our Fiji trips, and it's the same thing. She knows all the local women, and it's just that kind of society. There's men and women, so she knows all the local women, and they talk, and it's really positive for our students
Yeah.
because they're incorporated right into the village.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like what sets your trips apart from a lot of traditional study abroad program trips is those students are more tourists, and these students on your trip sound more like visitors,
Mhm.
and being welcomed into people's homes, and you're building what sounds like close relationships and close ties with not only the students traveling on your tours, but the locals, which
Mhm.
just makes a huge difference and a completely different experience than you would elsewhere if you were going to stay at the Holiday Inn in
Mhm.
Cambodia as opposed to mingling with the locals and enjoying their fairs and doing what they like to do. So it's I'm sure that's a much night and day difference between the two.
Yeah, and they honestly care about our students. So we had one student from Humboldt University in California that was a Kazakhstan national, and it was hard to get her into Australia. So it was really iffy about whether we could get her in. We did finally get her in, but it looked like we might have to have her left behind in Fiji for a couple of days. And like the Fijian people were saying, "Oh, we'll come and we'll take care of her. We'll see her at the hotel." And, yeah. So that's beyond just paying for a tour. They're willing to actually step up like an aunt or an uncle and help out.
And now, like in your role, so you're organizing the trips, you're doing the logistics, you're going on the trips, you're doing all the interaction with the students. Do you feel like that puts you at an advantage? With normal study abroad programs, students generally aren't going on the trips with the people who are doing all of the promotion and the back work. So, do you feel it sounds like that's really benefited you because you have more of a connection with the students then?
It does, but unfortunately, one student from Shippensburg actually made exactly that point. Like she wanted to go with us because we were the ones who ran the trips and we knew what was going when she came and talked to us. But then other students don't realize how much of a difference that can make, and they kind of buy into the sales pitch, and then they're not as happy. And there's been some unfortunate things with other companies. One person got killed in Rome because they dropped him off in Rome. They made him wear like a bracelet saying he was a new person, and he got robbed and thrown in a river and died. So I mean, they don't take care of people as much, and so that's a big problem.
Yeah, and I guess you know what to look out for. And,
right.
Yeah. So how many years have you been doing this now?
Ran our first trip in 1993.
Okay. So is that 25 years?
Yeah. But a lot of them were domestic early on, and then we moved into international ones.
Yeah.
Started with the Australia tour.
How did you, when did you decide that you needed to go abroad with your trips and not just domestic?
It was after St. Bonaventure hired me to run their one trip. And then I felt I could do it better, and then that's when we really branched out. We were doing domestic and international for a while, but now we're just international, no domestic trips.
Okay. So, it sounds like, your company, there's not too much risk with you running it. Like, it sounds like this might not be a company where you necessarily need an exit strategy, in case, because you're a full-time professor here at Westchester University, correct? And your wife is a professor at St. Joe's. What does she teach there?
Marketing as well.
Oh, yeah? Okay, nice. Got a marketing powerhouse.
Yeah. She does one side she does the consumer behavior side, and I'm the policy side.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, it works out well. There is a little bit of an exit strategy because as you get older, I either have to find both my wife and I, as we get older, we probably have 10 or 15 years in us that we can keep doing it. There's been a lot of times where I'm on the side of a mountain in Nepal in a torrential downpour like you would not believe.
Yeah.
And I can't picture myself doing it when I'm 70.
Yeah.
But so there is we either have to replace this or wind down the business at some point.
Yeah. Would you rather replace yourselves and keep the business going, or
if we could find people who did really a good job? There was a company in Lancaster called Bowman Jewelers that they couldn't find anybody they trusted to take over their name, and so they decided to close down.
Yeah.
And I would rather do that than have it become less of an experience for students.
Yeah, you see that, and I remember seeing that in some can't remember if it was your marketing course, with the story of McDonald's and how that,
the founder. Founder movie,
with Michael Keaton, and how that just became something that the original founders of McDonald's never wanted, and so that's something to really keep in mind too. Is if you have an emotional attachment to your business, you have to understand that where it could go because with startup companies. A lot of them, there's a lot of startup companies that are absorbed by larger companies so they can have rights to their technology, or even just to dissolve them, and that way they have more of the market share. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when thinking about passing on your business, selling it, or if you want to just close it and call it quits. And
the quality level has to be there, and it has to be kept safe, and that's a big concern because. You need a certain. just traveling a lot, you get to a certain point where you're just so relaxed in whatever culture you're in. You just know what's going on and know how to keep people safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big concern for us as far as keeping people safe. And
Yeah.
because we have a lot of, quote, dangerous activities that they're not really dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
but it feels so. We have a full day caving tour.
Yeah.
They're climbing up through waterfalls. My wife and I are both rescue divers.
Oh, really? Wow.
So we take students. The Fiji tour has a big diving component, and so does the Australia tour.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that, we do stuff to keep students safe.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to turn it over to somebody who wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And maybe have people that weren't knowledgeable enough about what was going on. And that's a problem with faculty, is that they need to, they're not necessarily really good at adapting to changing circumstances. Because they always say, like, those who can't teach. And that is kind of true. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is true.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need people that can think on the ground and not get all scared or worried.
Yeah.
Because I heard about a story about somebody in Minnesota that she got lost on a study tour. She was the leader of the tour. This wasn't our business. And then she wouldn't come out of her hotel room for the rest of the trip. And the students were out there, but she was scared and she wouldn't come out. That's a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that I want to be involved
finding the
in.
right people is a challenge, and and that just comes down to even just for your current business as it stands, and if you wanted to expand and have more people, not let alone pass it on to somebody else. So this sounds like it would be a very unique position to fill, because there's pretty strict criteria that you need to meet, and you can't just go throw that on one of these business listing websites where they populate resumes. And
right. Well, that's why I'm saying that we're looking at some of the people who went on our tours early on, because we know them really well.
Yeah.
Maybe having them do one tour each or 2 tours each.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a fun vacation for them. They get their 2 weeks, they could do their trip and then go home. And what I'm kind of envisioning over time is that I would be like, let's say Southeast Asia. I could be based in Bangkok. We could have multiple people like that running Vietnam tours.
Mm-hmm.
And then if there was a problem, I could be the trouble solver and just kind of fly out and take care of any problems.
Yeah. Do you foresee yourself moving abroad, after you retire from teaching?
There's a
here?
strong temptation to do it. Yeah. There's a couple nice places.
Southeast Asia where you're looking at?
Southeast Asia would be tough. I'm actually looking at the Somme in France.
Okay.
The Somme region is just about an hour and a half north of Paris.
All right.
But it looks just like Lancaster County, which is where I grew up, but the Lancaster County of the 1960s.
Uh-huh.
So it's really pretty. Everybody speaks English because there's a huge British tourism presence.
Okay.
So, but you still get the French food and all that great
stuff.
stuff.
Wine? Is there a lot of
It's near the Champagne country.
Yeah, right near Champagne.
Not really wine, but the Champagne country. Yeah.
I guess Champagne's grown in cooler climates than.
I'm not sure. They said this past year was a really good year, but
I heard about that. It was like one of the best years that they've had in like almost 2 decades for Champagne. So the growers are really happy.
But it's a really pretty region.
Yeah.
And so that would be kind of nice. Asia would be a little tough.
Yeah.
But what I was envisioning was that I would just go there during the tours as kind of the troubleshooter and just stay in a central location, and then if there was a problem, hopefully not, then I could go and help.
Cool. Well, Dr. Phillips, we're coming to the end of the video here.
Okay.
For all the participants who are taking part in the Startup Judo Founder videos, we invite you to give a 30-second bit on self-promotion, shameless, you can say whatever you'd like to promote your company and what you guys do and how people can get in contact with you.
Okay. Well, I think we try to keep we are trying to follow the true not-for-profit kind of model. I think we really do some extremely good tours compared to what else is out there at about half the price. And the best way to contact us would be through the website, so explorationcenter.com.
Okay.
And so if you have a kid or somebody who wants to go on a trip, then contact us. That would be great.
Okay, excellent. And we'll include a link to your website in the description of the video, and so people can find your website, check out some of your tours. I know I've looked at the site and I've looked at a lot of the pictures. There's some incredible pictures on there.
Thank
you. Definitely an awesome site to check out. So, Phillips, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Having you on today. And,
thank you.
Definitely stay in touch.